Thank you. Well, this is a true story, and I've probably told bits and pieces of it 100 times, but I just sat there and tried to put it into something a little more continuous. This goes back about 43 years ago, and it's a story about ice hockey. I was in 7th grade, and my sister and I and all the neighborhood kids were playing ice hockey on this creek about 5 blocks from my house. And you got to the creek by going down this steep embankment. Anyway, we're down there playing hockey, and I tripped on something in the ice and fell flat on my face. And I got up and I looked at the ice to see what I tripped on, and it took me back to the previous June. I was laying in bed. It was about 7 o'clock in the morning. My dad, I hear him pulling up in his noisy old truck, and my mom comes to the door and wakes me up and says, "Get out of bed. You have to go with your father. He needs your help." Like, no, I'm not getting out of bed. It's been 3 weeks since school let out. It's been raining every day. It's probably raining now. I don't want to get out of bed. She said, "No, the weather's okay, but your dad really needs you." So I get out of bed and I go outside, and there's my dad all covered in mud and sand. And he says, "We're going for a bike ride. But first, take this rope. And I want you to tie all the lawn furniture to that tree over there." Here I am, an 11-year-old kid, and I'm hearing this from my father. I'm like, what the heck is he saying? Well, anyway, I tied everything up, and by then my dad was ready to leave, and we got on our bikes, and it was a hill. He said, "We're going to the airport." And it was about a half mile away, and we went downhill to the airport, across this bridge. There's a creek under there, and get to the airport, it was like a ghost town. No airplanes, no people, no traffic on the roads. Well, here my dad was working all morning at the cemetery in a little town called Forty Fort. You may know that town.
I know.
Yes. The river flows past the cemetery there, and the cemetery is about 30 feet higher than the river, and then there's about an 8-foot levee. Well, the river that morning was at 39 feet. So they were building a higher levee system around the cemetery. So I looked at my father, and I said, "Why are we here?" He said, "Well, I wanted one last look at this place because something bad's going to happen." And I'm like looking around, what bad could happen here? And then my father said something I never heard him say before. He's looking over my shoulder, and he says, "Holy shit, let's get the hell out of here." And I turned, and I didn't see anything, but we got on our bikes, and we started riding away from the airport, up the hill, over the little bridge, and he said, "Stop." He said, "Turn around. Look at that farm over there." And it was about maybe a mile-wide farm with a levee in the distance, the river on the other side, and all of a sudden this wall of water comes past. It started out as just a little bubbling thing. It was brown and foamy. But then about a minute later, there was more than water. There were trees, there was plastic things, but then there were coffins. Hundreds of coffins. Here the levee in the cemetery had breached, and about 2,000 grave sites were washed away. There's a memorial up in the hills a little bit west of town now where they've relocated all the remains that were found throughout the city. There were bodies all over 40 Fort, Swarsville, West Wyoming, and of course the airport area. Oh yeah, this is a story about ice hockey. I looked back at what I tripped on, and all I could see were these 5 black curled things with what looked like fingernails sticking out of each one. Those weren't fingernails, those were toenails. Remember I said there were 2,000 relocated bodies? They missed one. You can look it up in the Times Leader and the Wilkesboro Record newspapers. The next day they had the chainsaws out, and that foot was connected to the rest of the body. But thank you.